When I wake up at night, I gotta know the time. Can I sleep some more? Out of bed I climb. Check throughout my workday, counting down to lunch. Looking at my wrist all day, checking the time a bunch. It's not just about the time, it's part of my identity. The character of the design, exhibiting my complexity. The colors, my mood, rushed out the house without it, I'm screwed. Without my watch, feel nude. It's part of my life, it's who I am. I'm a big time watch lover, a huge ass fan. I know my phone has a clock, but I don't care. My phone lacks the flair. My watch shows my personality, my individuality. My interest in love, I keep buying more to satisfy my urges. I can't stop collecting, overspending splurges. Emptying the bank, now I got too many payments on several services. Quartz or auto, and yeah, you need to win the lotto to buy some complications. You spend a little, you spend a lot chasing your grails and buying what's hot. Put on your diver or dress watch today, classy for the office or rugged to play. Oh, 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 oh. My individuality. I keep buying more to satisfy my urges. I can't stop collecting, overspending splurges. Emptying the bank, now I got too many payments on several services. Quartz or auto, and yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jim. I'd like to discuss a really cool watch with you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Christopher Ward Trident Pro 300 in the 42mm size. Yes, Christopher Ward does offer this same watch in multiple sizes, and I have to applaud them for doing that because, as I've discussed many times on this channel, I have a big wrist, got a big arm, attached to a big guy. I can't wear 38 and 40mm cases because they're just too tiny and look childish on me. And I don't want anything clownish. I don't want 48, 50, 52mm watches. But I like to be between that 42 and 44mm size. So as much as I love Christopher Ward watches, there aren't many that I would have the opportunity to own because they just wouldn't fit me right. This in 42mm is amazing. It also looks a little bit bigger on the wrist than the 42 that it is. Let's take a quick look at the packaging here. They do a really nice, clean job on their packaging. It's very professional looking. Really, really nice. This slides open. It's actually held together with magnets. I kind of dig that. So inside the wooden portion of the case, you're going to have your instruction manual. And I believe this is most likely going to be the warranty information. I do believe so. All these things in here together. And there it is. It is a clean, classic, beautiful dive watch. But the most amazing part about this is going to be the case. Now, the Trident was introduced in 2009 or 2010, somewhere around there. And the light catcher case has become a fan favorite. Now, here's why. It is super thin and sleek. At 300 meters water resistant, it's only 11.5mm in thickness. Now, there are not a lot of dive watches on the market that are this thin. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing one right now on my wrist. I'm wearing my Zen U1. Now, it's not a massive, bulky watch, but it's considerably thicker. I also brought out Seiko Monster here, which is not, again, tremendously thick. But in comparison, there's quite a huge difference. So let me go over the specs very quickly, and then we'll get into the watch, my likes or dislikes, and go on from there. Just going to kind of lay this off to the side. Try and do it where there's no reflections. There we go. I'm going to put the packaging away as I do this. So what we have here is a Swiss-made timepiece with a 42 millimeter case diameter. It's also available in a 38 and a 40 millimeter, so that you can choose the size that works best for you. Now, in my opinion, this is almost identical to the Omega Seamaster 300 Pro Bond watch, and I think that's probably why I like it so much. It's a solid, tough, sturdy diver, but it's not very thick, it's not very large, and it's well balanced. That 11.5 millimeters in thickness really makes a tremendous difference. Now, your lug width is 22 millimeters, so you can replace this bracelet with a strap that you like for 22 millimeters in width. You have 300 meters of water resistance with a screw-down crown and a screwed-in caseback. Your bezel insert is all ceramic, and it's a 120-click unidirectional rotating bezel. Of course, it's being topped off with a sapphire crystal, and inside is a Sellita SW200 movement, which is a 26-joule automatic with a 38-hour power reserve. Now, it does have an exhibition caseback on here so that you're able to view the movement. And these are available both on a bracelet and on a strap. Now, one of the other things that I really like about this is the bracelet. Number one, it's got a very nice fold-over clasp. And while typically I don't want a dual pusher fold-over clasp on a dive watch, I want that wetsuit extension. I want that ratchetability, if that's a real word. But here, you don't have to worry about it because they have the hidden away, easy adjust. You couldn't get easier than this. Very simple. It's also very secure, and it's a nice soft close on there as well. And Christopher Ward offers a 60-month return and warranty policy, which is phenomenal, particularly for a micro brand. There are a lot of watch brands out there, many prestigious watch brands where you would be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on your new timepiece, and you get a 1-year warranty. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a 2-year warranty. Here, it goes far beyond that, and as I understand it, the few people that have had to use a Christopher Ward warranty have been very, very happy. I like the fact that the return policy goes that far as well. That is unheard of, at least to me. I've never seen that before. Now, one of the main things I like about this is the fact that it looks larger due to the thin bezel presence and the large dial opening. Again, as compared to my U1, you see it's still got a pretty large dial opening and a pretty thin bezel, whereas most divers are going to have a pretty chunky looking bezel, and it makes the watch look beefy and chunky, but it has to be made up for size-wise with the diameter of the case to make it look big. So there it is on my wrist. Typically, I do not like a bracelet that tapers this much. However, because of how slim this watch is, that more elegant feel that it has, and the light weight of the case head, doesn't bother me at all to have the slimmed down bracelet. A lot of times, while yes, it makes it more comfortable because that's the area that your wrist is bending at, it's nice to have it thinner at the clasp. A lot of times, a watch will feel top heavy because a company, I'll use Rolex for an example, I really don't like how much the Rolex bracelets taper. They taper an extreme amount. And to me, it makes the case head too top heavy on my wrist where it doesn't feel quite right, doesn't feel well balanced. Now imagine my surprise and glee when I discovered that the bracelet has quick release spring bars. Look at those. That means a quick pinch, no tools required, And you can pop your solid end link bracelet off, swap out to other bracelets, swap out to straps in a matter of seconds without requiring any tools. Swapping over to a strap could not be easier. Now, the dial is gorgeous. It's very clean, very plain, but it's a nice, almost looks like an enamel dial. It's so reflective and so nice. And then you have, of course, the bevel cut and individually applied baton style hour markers with a double baton at 12. Your calendar is positioned at the 6 o'clock position. I like having the calendar aperture here because, again, it gives symmetry and balance to the whole thing. And they are using Superluminova X1, which is a longer lasting compound than standard Superluminova. And it's funny because Lume is actually what brought me to this watch, because they just released their brand new Lumiere model. And I saw the advertisements for that and I fell in love. I saw that design and I saw the ceramic hour markers that are, they're luminescent ceramic. And I was like, oh my goodness, I got to get my hands on one of those. And when I reached out to Christopher Ward, the gentleman I was speaking with, Andrew, a delightful gentleman, says, unfortunately, we have a huge long wait list for that watch because it's a brand spanking new design. He says, but we'd love to participate with you. Is there another model that you've been looking at? And I told him I really liked there was a couple different ones, of course, that I liked because it's Christopher Ward. Their watches are fantastic. And he suggested the Trident Pro 300 himself. He goes, if you prefer a larger watch, this in 42 is probably going to be the best way to go. And he was absolutely right. From the day it arrived, I put it on and I've been instantly in love with it. Now, I can't spend the entire video drooling over it. I do have to critique it a little bit. So let's do that. And as I'm making my way into that, let's also take a look at the Lume in real time. And for that, we'll break out the Emelent BL50. We'll switch it over to UV, and we'll give it just a couple of seconds of charge with the UV light. And that should be more than enough. And let's see how it fares. Brilliant. Beautiful glow. Nice blue, clean glow. Nice, clean blue glow. Another thing that I absolutely love is that the dial is not set deep within the case. It's very, very up close to the underside of the sapphire crystal. I really do like that a lot. But like I said, I do have to critique it just the tiniest little bit. Let's go ahead and adjust that back in a little. Unlock it, slide it in a click or two. That has come in very, very handy because it's the change of seasons right now for us. We're just starting to see that cooler weather, and that means your skin shrinks down a little bit and your watches all become just a little bit looser. My critique is this. This would be an outstanding $800 watch on the bracelet. But at $1,200, I'm a little bit hesitant. Yes, the finishing is beautifully refined, and I need to show you that close up for you to understand why this light catcher case is as revered as it is. Everything is brushed beautifully, and then just the outer edge has been beveled and perfectly polished. They don't polish the entire lug horn, only draping down the edges, coming up around the crown guards. And then 100% of everything else is brushed. So you have a very clean, smooth finish that's easy to touch up if you scratch it up a little bit. And then just small key areas that will catch the light And then, of course, that goes well with the shiny black ceramic. And the way they have beveled and cut the hour markers. It is stunning to look at. So yes, the finishing and refinement, yeah, it does scream $1,200 watch. It actually screams a lot more than that, to be perfectly honest with you. And the crown, the threading on here is perfectly squared and smooth. No grit, no drama. It is perfect. And the bezel is fitted excellent. It's nice and clean. It's got a soft 120 clicks, and you'll see there is absolutely no backplay in it whatsoever. And pushing down on it, there's no play or give in it there either. But I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of watches in the $1,200 price range that do things right. Yes, it wears like a Seamaster, like I said before, so you could see it as a value, as a budget bond. I've owned 3 bonds, and I've absolutely loved them, and I've always told people that, to me, has always been the quintessential sport watch. That was the perfect everyday wear sport watch. It truly doesn't matter how you're dressed, what you're wearing. It works perfectly. Oddly enough, even, yes, the blue dial just kind of fits in well with everything. But I also had one of the Bond editions that was all black, the very first one they made. And you could dress it up with a suit, dress it down in shorts and a tank top. It didn't matter. It was perfect. And I think this fits the same role. This is one that every time I have slid it on, I have not wanted to take it off. It is unbelievably comfortable. It's not bulky in any way. It's not obtrusive to your lifestyle. Because again, let me just show you the height on the wrist. Even on this very thin nylon strap, not on its original rubber strap, that's still chunky. Now, that doesn't bother me, but I could see how that would bother some people. But I've got to tell you, once you've put this on, you wonder why every brand doesn't strive for this. Why don't they offer extreme water resistance in divers this thin? Well, let's be honest with you. Everybody's trying to hit a price point. And the smaller and thinner you make something, the more difficult it is and the more expensive it is. Now, a lot of times, it requires you going into a much more expensive movement. And caliber is important. It's nice to see that they were able to do this. They maximized the space in this case for the SW200. They could have gotten a modified version or modified it themselves and had it a slimmer movement. However, they were able to do it with the standard SW200. That's fantastic. It's a good, solid movement. It's got a great reputation. Had a rocky start in its early years, but it's built up a solid reputation, and many Swiss brands rely on it. This has been wonderfully accurate. I've not kept it on any kind of timekeeper or anything like that, because that would be way more professional than I'm capable of. But it has been worn all but, I think, 3 days of the 2 weeks that it's been here. And it hasn't gained or lost enough time where I've had to reset the time. So it stayed within a minute or so over the course of 2 weeks. That's with it being on the wrist almost every day. And the couple of days that it wasn't, it was sitting, lying like this, crown up, and it still maintained wonderful accuracy. Could it be running within COSC specs? It could be, absolutely. And the thing is, I'm not an absolute accuracy snob, because when you have a large collection, You're not wearing the same watch every single day. So it doesn't matter if that thing is dead to the second every single day. When I'm deciding what watch I'm going to wear that day, it doesn't inconvenience me to unscrew the crown and move the hand back or forth by 1 minute or so to make sure it's in perfect time. It also doesn't bother me if I don't have enough slots on my watch winder to have every automatic on there to wind it up. I still have an original orange monster from way, way, way back in the 7S26 days. That thing loses its power reserve super quick. You can't hand wind it. So I've got to sit there like a dummy and just shake the watch for 20, 30 seconds before I can put it on my wrist to get it running again. So those little things don't really bother me all that much. And I think a lot of people are just too hung up on the ultimate accuracy. Yes, if a watch can be fantastically accurate within a second a day or some craziness like that, that shows the quality and care that went into the adjustment and into the manufacturing of that watch, absolutely. But for me, it's not a practical requirement. So I think, yes, at $1,200, it's not a bad deal. I just think with all the watches that are out there between $1,000 and $1,200, I think that this could be just a little bit less. Doesn't mean it has to be. I think anybody buying this at $1,200 would receive it and be thoroughly happy, no matter how much you've built yourself up while you're waiting for it to ship. You would be so overwhelmed and happy when you open this thing up and put it on the wrist. It's just that nice. And I don't say that about a lot of watches. There are certainly watches that I love and that I can immediately fall in love with, but this one feels a bit special. Honestly, you pick it up and you look at the dimensions and you'd swear this had to be a quartz. That there's no way they made a 300-meter diver this skinny in an automatic. But there she is right there. The time and expense that they took manufacturing this clasp instead of using a much cheaper clasp, which I feel they could have gotten away with, is fantastic. Even the weight of the bracelet, even though it's not very thick and it tapers nicely, it has a solid heft to it. This feels like a substantial high-quality watch, every bit as much as it looks the part. And one small touch that's wholly insignificant is the logo. I love the way they changed their logo. It used to be the Christopher Ward name in a script written on the dials. Now they've switched over to this Twin Flags logo. It's clean and simple, but it has a bold look to it, and it represents the duality of the brand's origin, covering both England and Switzerland, their home office and their production facilities, respectively. And I think that's brilliant. It's really hard to design a logo. Believe me, really ridiculously hard. Especially if you want to make a simplified logo and you still want it to symbolize something important or multiple things, that's even more difficult. And I think it wonderfully represents what Christopher Ward is about. There is a complexity to what they're doing, but they make it seem effortless. They make it seem almost plain. Because if you just look at pictures of this watch online, you think, that's kind of a plain Jane watch for a diver. There's nothing particularly wild or crazy about it. And that's true. Now, it doesn't have a Movado level of simplicity to it, thank goodness. But it's very clean and simple, nothing extraneous. And the details really lie in the finishing, in the dimensions, and the way they've chosen to execute this watch. So again, while I personally would love to see this a few $100s lower in price, I don't feel that anyone would be unhappy at the full price when they receive the watch. So if that's my only real critique is that, geez, I wish it could be a couple $100 less, then that is one hell of a watch. So if you've been looking through microbrands and you've been trying to find one that gives you a high degree of quality and refinement at a good microbrand price, establishing real value, Christopher Ward, judging by this one example, is definitely a brand you want to pay attention to. And if you're like me, you're a man that can't wear a 38 or 40 millimeter watch and you are frustrated beyond words that all of these micro brands show off images of really gorgeous designs that you can never own because they won't make it in a quote unquote man size. Check this out from Christopher Ward. Yes, if you are more comfortable with 38 or 40, they make that for you too. They're not excluding anybody. You could have the wrists of a toddler and be able to wear one of their tridents. You could have the wrists of a strong man and be able to wear one of their tridents. That's fantastic. Nobody's being left out in the cold. And it's a price that most watch collectors can afford. And if not, it's one that you can aspire to. Maybe it'll take you 6 months to save up. This is not the economy that people are wanting to spend a lot on luxury purchases. It might not be the way it was for you just a few years ago. You may have been buying multiple $1,200 watches a month. I don't know. And maybe now it's one of those things where you go, I have to save up for it. So I need to know if it's worth it. If I'm going to sit back for 3 months and keep myself from buying other lesser expensive watches to satiate my need for a new watch in my collection, I need to know that the end result is worth it. Is the payoff there? I would say yes, absolutely. So anyway, I'm going to end this because quite honestly, I just want to put this back on my wrist for a few more days before I have to box it up and send it back to Christopher Ward. And I want to thank them so very much for lending this to me for representation on my channel, because this is a brand I have been very, very curious about. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it was based on the pricing, because I've had a chance to really play with a lot of different watches from a lot of different brands. And I couldn't see in pictures why this was $1,200 and it wasn't $500 or $600. It was very clear as soon as I opened it up and pulled it out. When I felt it, when I put it on the wrist, and when I get a really close look at it, I went, no, I see. I see why this definitely isn't a $500 watch. But sure, I would love for it to be an $800 watch. Why not? And yep, well, I would have no problem at all spending $1,200. As a matter of fact, I'm considering buying one of these myself now that I've had a chance to use it. I don't know if I want the black or the white dial, kind of leaning toward the white at this point. I do know that in the Lumiere, I'm going for that blue fume dial. That thing is amazing. I'm definitely going to try to get one of those. And I think I want one of these to add into more of my regular rotation, a watch that I would wear more often than not, just because it is so gosh darn comfortable. So anyway, back on the wrist, I'm going to set the time and get back to wearing it and enjoy it before I get to box it back up. Thank you guys for joining me as always, and I'll see you on the next video.